So we can close session on that, not on this as well. And so this is a litigation that is going on. So really, purpose of this is no feedback on this before we go into closed session. I cannot give you an opinion on this because there's a guideline issue exposing decisions in the public. So except it's closed session. So I really the purpose of why I wanted to hear from everyone is because this will help me make better decisions.
Could you explain why it's a closed session? Because that was something that I think more than one of my neighbors was curious about.
So anytime this litigation is closed, and the reason why is because if it's open, then the determination of those strategies, the other side knows. So you have to, when there's litigation or litigation, it's always a closed session.
But can you explain the situation? Why is it going through closed? Why all this kind of things get
No, so that's not closed. This is to do with, whether the city appeals the adverse ruling.
Yeah. Fine, something.
Well, no, so I think I haven't heard, unless someone else knows about it, I haven't heard that the market's been closed.
No, nobody said that.
Yeah, I
I
haven't
don't know where that came
No,
from.
it's just a thing that said that, as I understood it, that there's a clause that requires the developer to keep a market,
Yes,
and if that can be taken away.
yes, it's by a hot water, but it was better to explain it. I don't feel comfortable explaining it to people when you're right here.
So, I'm not a lawyer either, so, and we actually haven't met, we haven't met with our city attorney on this, so, in some ways, it's a lot of perspective, because we have been police by our attorney, so, I can tell you what I haven't heard of, I haven't heard of the process.
No.
I've heard the process actually doing quite well, and that people are quite happy with it.
Yes.
That's what I have heard. In terms of legal opinions or outcomes, I just want to say it or again, and I'm not expecting you guys to really the purpose of this is to very good about this topic, but that's really what the purpose is. I'm one of the city council members, I can't it's on this one, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say this is what's going on. I don't know.
So, this is funding supplement to whatever emails that the city council has received on the topic.
And we've gone probably, how many emails have we got?
I think over 100. Yeah, a lot of
We've
and
got,
which way do they? Everybody wanted to keep
yeah.
But that wasn't the question.
Yeah.
The question was, does the city spend money?
That's,
I mean, that's the
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
right? It has nothing to do with, do you like the market?
Right.
so I think there's actually a lot of confusion of some people that, you ask people that people,
Yeah, some people read like 3 words in the email, and that's as far as they get.
So I think there is some confusion on there, because I haven't heard anything about it.
Well, it sounds to me like there's a distinction between whether the developer, the owner of the property, has any obligation to have a continuously operating grocery store on the site. And so it's like, if he doesn't need that, I don't understand whether there'd be different use that he would prefer to use that space for. And in that sense, there could be, some risk to not having it be required
Maybe we
that the
should
grocery
summarize.
store be operating.
Maybe we should
Otherwise, I don't
summarize the big
understand.
picture, because I don't think everybody.
Well,
think
do you
that's
want
good.
to
You want to do it?
Well, I don't know, I'm here most of the information, not an NBC and St. Francis, and so I have this little hub.
Right.
To work does a nice communication, transfer information to my group. And information is
So, please, anybody who knows better, just stop. Take the question. I think that historically, Lucky's there, and then the developer bought the property, and the developer made a deal with the city that in return for having a close to knocking down the old building, which I'm not supposed to do, but that's buildings under the bulldozer. They were given a whole bunch of land that was supposed to be used for a shopping center over to put condos. These old and nice, beautiful condos that sold for millions and millions of dollars each. So the developer got a benefit of the condos, and in return, my understanding is the developer promised to keep the market going there. And then there was a little market there, and for whatever reasons, that market closed. I think it was because the owner moved out. They closed all their California. This is from newspaper reports. And so there's no market there. So people in the neighborhood are a little upset because, wait a minute, the developer got their part.
No, no,
Well,
he's doing it.
this is- I think this is, you weren't here then, I don't think. Or you were just barely come here to town.
No, actually, I moved to New York.
Okay, so you may remember. Okay, so there was a little market for a while, and then the market owner closed all their stores in California. So now there was no market for a while, and so the neighbors went to the city and said, "Hey, how come there's no market? They promised the market." And apparently there was discussion with the city and the developer, and the developer said, "I'm trying," and the city said, "Try harder," and the developer said, "I'm trying," and the city said, "Try harder," and eventually, I'm just summarizing that. And eventually, the city said, "Well, we're going to start fining you." And the city started fining them at some small amount. And then nothing happened and nothing happened. Quite a lot of time passed with no market. And eventually the city started raising the fines. There were a bunch of neighborhood meetings. We had various, it was right around the time of the city council elections. So we had a bunch of city council candidates come by and give their opinions. And the general consensus was the developer wasn't doing their side of the deal. So the city should fine them and try to encourage them. And I don't really know any of the details, obviously, but at some point, the developer decided to, either the city or the developer went to arbitration over this, and the administrative determination was that the developer should pay the fine, and they never paid the fine, but they were supposed to. And then they apparently took it to Superior Court, and they won in Superior Court. So now the developer argued, and this is all public, you can read their filings. They argued that they really have no, all they have to do is have a store owner paying rent in, like, and that's it. Like, they don't actually have to have an operating grocery store. All they have to do is have somebody who says they might open one, okay, or whatever. So they were arguing strenuously that the actual words in the agreement, which none of us have ever seen as far as I know, I don't think it was ever in public, that they don't really have to do more than that. And the city, of course, was arguing that no, the spirit of the word says you're supposed to run a grocery store. So apparently they won in Superior Court, and the city's never gotten any money in fines. And now the question, if I'm correct, is should the city go and do an appeal? And the reason this matters to some of us is because if the city lets it stand as is, then in the future, should the grocery store close for whatever reason, the developer is on pretty strong ground to say, I don't have to pay any fines. We've already done that. We've already decided that question. And so, honestly, I'm not sure what the city should do. I think it would be reasonable for the city to try to appeal, because if the developer can basically say, here's a tricky way to read the agreement so that I can have, say, a tenant who says their grocery store but it's not operating, that would be close enough. And why wouldn't developers do this kind of thing to the city all the time? I mean, I'm sure we're all aware of the Sheridan Square issue, where a developer was allowed to, the building on the Fries, Sheridan, was allowed to build an extra story of luxury apartments in return for having a public space, which is now a restaurant. So, yeah, Happy Rache's was supposed to be a public space because they got an extra floor of apartments.
But principally, it means the market doesn't exist in the way it is now.
Well, who knows? I don't know any of the details. I don't think any of us have ever seen this agreement with the developer, right?
And why didn't?
And if somebody knows if I said something that isn't correct, please correct me, because I'm just going by.
No. Just.
Seems about right.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand why the developer would be in a position to be, to not want that, to let it go and just,
I went to see something, I believe there was something about the amount of money that, the developer was being fined. And it's actually quite a small amount in terms of how big it is. So they were able to just kind of sit on it for that few years. And it's like you say, this idea of the spirit of something. The spirit of something is fine, but I think it needs to be black and white. Because you can have the spirit of it, it should be emergency work. And apparently, this is what happened, my understanding, was that it was something like $50,000 a month, which may be a lot to us, but apparently to these guys, it was, and so it went on and on before we got in now the market, or the market, yeah.
Well, we don't know the terms, maybe they have to subsidize the market, or the government, we have no clue. So, it's all secret.
There was something about how much they pay for it. Wasn't there?
Yeah, in terms of general, there's some stuff that's in the session, stuff that's problematic, and
But if I say something that you know is not true,
I don't think that's correct. I don't know about development, that's my number.
I'm not sure that, I know it was some number that seemed, was big to us. It was big to us, but then we come to find out that it was just nothing to them, so that it was, and I think there was a group of citizens who kind of meetings, trying to encourage them up the farm money. But now I'm hearing, and this is fascinating to me, so we have actually, as a city, not collected any money. I think that should be something
Well,
like
that's the litigation, so.
Sure.
No, but the question of did the city ever collect any money should not be a secret.
No, I think money will be nice, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, makes sense. But they won in Superior Court.
I'm not sure about that, because the previous decision by court was the city side prevailed.
That was the,
That's what
That was the-
that was the administrative law judge, said the city, and then they brought it to Superior Court in San Francisco. Years ago.
All right.
Just read the weekly.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know if I missed, I'm sorry, late. Is there any,
I know you said.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm Kathy Jordan. I just wanted to ask a question. Is the market and ratings in jeopardy? I don't understand. Okay, that's all I want.
I think maybe you just read 2 or 3 words of the email, and didn't quite.
I read the rest, but it wasn't clear to me that I didn't know if it had some subsidy from the rent made by.
We don't know, since nobody knows if there's a subsidy.
Well, I don't know if the market's in jeopardy, that's what I was wondering.
The point is, I don't think we have any way of knowing, because we'll always be the last to know, because.
Obviously, we love the market.
But
Or at
say
least I
that
feel that
we're
way.
having subsidized, or to do a like a really lower than they could get from somebody else. If, this is just make believe in my head, if the developer had to make an extra low rent in order to get a market to go there, and then the city lets the ruling stand that they don't really have to do that, then they would have every incentive to potentially do something else, right? So since it's all secret, none of us have any way to know. I mean, we don't know. But it's all supposition on our part.
But if we give it, it's possible then, it's to give the ruling stand.
If the rules change. So that was the rationale for the city appealing and trying to get what we would think is a fair hearing. I never understood how, Superior Court decided that you could read the words just this way to say that.
Well, construction. Because they were comparing the two of these, with the market of culture trends. The language from that one, which looked to be more demanding, was not included in the language the market did. And why that happened, I don't know. I don't know why the same language in the operating market was not in the supposedly the agreement with the Edgewood? Was it something that nobody felt was
I'm
bad?
not agreeing with this, but I can look at the document, the lawyer filed with, city, and forget, I think that there's the statement, quote, the continued use of the 2,600 square feet building as a grocery store. That's what they found, objectionable, right? The continued operation as a grocery store.
You're saying that's what.
That's what is written in the contract, that's what that.
Arctic.
And,
Are you saying Sandhill property?
So that's citing out of the contract, and you're saying you don't know what's in the contract.
Is that the language that was in the contract?
I haven't seen the actual contract.
None of us have
It's
seen
on
the
lots of
contract.
documents,
So
but
could you reread that, please?
I did one. Well.
This is part of their brief?
Well, this is what they have filed, in 16, this is just, the request for hearing and notice of, protest representation. It's a while ago, something that they lost.
Is that the administrative
Yes.
decision?
I thought the decision is.
But I think that's been
it's filed in
superseded
court.
by the
We're
Superior
moving
Court.
on.
No,
That was
hold on.
superseded by the Superior
They're
Court.
citing the contract. They're citing the contract.
Okay.
The contract wording didn't change because of the news.
Oh, so since we haven't seen the contract, you can surmise that this one sentence from
Exactly,
the
they're
contract.
citing from, that is public domain, they're saying didn't you contract? The contract demanded the continued use of the 20,600 square feet building as a grocery store. That's what they want to get rid of.
They want to get rid of that.
Exactly, so that's the formulation of it.
And that's why
And
we're all
they can
concerned.
say, we have a lease on this, it's vacant, we know, but, the lease on that building is still in place. It's vacant, but we have that much, and it's as much as we'll do, because the rest is impossible. They basically argue that the enforcement of that continuous use is unreasonable on the grounds of impossibility. You cannot provide the continuous use, I don't think that is it. But the sign for it, right, there's a contract.
If they didn't want to do that, they shouldn't have, made this deal, they should have gone through that.
Right?
Yeah, but it's that, right?
But
I
at
mean,
the end
that's
of the contract, what really matters is how it's interpreted, and that's up to the judge.
okay, so they chose to interpret, we have a lease for 10 years, and that's good enough for first month.
After all of that happened, it then went to Superior Court, and apparently, at least assumingly, we reported to the doctor the city was out. So if things are left the way they are now, and the city doesn't do anything else, then a few years could go by, and then something happens.
Or even sooner, because this thing is not in place, they have no obligation there, they own the land, they can ask for the money. Please, if it was subsidized, if you are saying.
So we're in agreement there, so I think it's.
How about if we move to that?
Sorry, that's very good. Absolutely. That's perfect, thank you.
You wanted to.
Let's do pretty close. Sorry.
So,
What do you think about all this? I mean, I think
Well-
most of us are out of it.
yeah, so, I just think it's great for us, and this is their education, right? So, it's something which, I would definitely not especially, for that. If I do that, I will, fuck it.
Okay.
Right, so I cannot. But I can do, I can, and make sure suggestions, which is what I wanted before the closed session. But I cannot tell you how I will decide on this.
No, I wasn't really asking that, I was just asking you to correct any mistakes that any of us.
I don't think there is, I think you actually really good something about what's happening, more, right? Yeah, so I think your section, starting to go, really happen. And, would go beyond that, but you just read it.
Yeah, no, I just really, I'm sorry, and I know that's what you said, but, my years of just like really support the market, lived in the area for a long time, and seen the various markets come and go, and that matters a lot to me. Especially supporting small community business, because for our community gather, a friend of mine helped organize the Edgewood Eats, trying to draw in the market there. It was really trying.
It's a good idea.
No, good friend of mine organized it. Really? Okay.
We went, that was good.
Wasn't it? I mean, and really people would just come with their folding chairs and hang out, and I feel like whenever I go there, I see neighbors, I want to be connected. It's important to me, I don't want to go to meetings all the time, I don't want to go say anything. I mean, what I thought is the whole vibe of that area has changed. I've been in my home for 25 years, and I live right to it. And now people are actually starting to gather there and create community. I usually, when I have meetings with people, I don't go in my home anymore. So that's there. Because it just is so, it's what we do in this area. And I think the more, I just think people walking, and most of the things are not taking photos. I try not to park in that parking lot by my neighborhood. I do business there. Yeah.
But street, but looking forward, parking is one of the risks. Because, if, customers keep on dying, that would be a disaster. Cars will do this, and the space we made in the middle, it was tight to begin with, we made a big space in the middle of where it should be time, and that was a mistake. The point being, if there is a need for improvement, we should support. If there is a need for improvement, to resolve this parking, problem, that be too tight, then who's on the hook? Will the city step in to modify it, or will the property owner, supposedly that should, but then somebody has to be on the hook. Going forward. Oh, does it?
Alexander.
Yeah.
I do think too, that as neighbors, people also encourage our neighbors more and more to not drive one car.
Yeah, quite right.
Yeah, we do the same.
We usually walk.
We don't care.
But the point still is, there is a hard state. And if somebody is not responsible for the hard state, and that becomes a problem, which is great, if the place becomes more popular, and it is very popular, you must park there, very well. So somebody has to own that part. Now, if the obligation for continuous separation disappears, and there's nobody to go to for a problem arising, if one of them potentially, then we have a problem. It may have begun with a subsidy on the part of the developer, and if that subsidy immediately disappears as the result of that ruling standing, then we have a problem because it will collapse. Because the operator, sorry, the landowner is free to charge whatever rate. They have no incentive to keep that thing operational anyway. They are only after the money, at which point the operability of this is not an objective, the income. Is your point? Correct.
So who is the owner?
Through the sample problem.
So problem is the owner. First thing, instead maybe under what conditions they can decide to market the direct way or indirect way will disappear. And if it is so, then probably we should kind of understand that we should send the mail or whatever, go to the neighbor next door, whatever it is. But what should be done from our point, customers' point, so it wouldn't happen? What should be done by city? What should we require from city? What should be done?
Indeed, there has to be some kind of safety net for this to continue operation. That's a problem, because the safety net, this little clause, according to what the gentleman just said, has been stopped. If that is stopped, there's no safety net. Then we'll go under the tree.
So I was just reading it. So that clause is no longer, it's not, it doesn't apply in the way that people would hope the judge ruled that, right? It has to be done. So that's done.
No, it can be appealed.
Correct, but I think that the city, according to the weekly, already voted to appeal it. That was back in January.
Oh, boy, that's a huge disconnect.
Is that correct?
I mean, I
thought that was.
According to this article,
Well,
there may be an update that I would put the article of ratings and the council voted to appeal it at that time. So,
But here's the thing.
I understand, yeah.
So
I understand.
that's,
I guess my point, I guess what I wanted to say, you know, I don't really care so much about the fines.
Oh, I don't care about
But I-
that either.
Right, I don't think it's necessarily a approach towards single property. I think everybody would love to see continued operation of the market or grocery store. I don't know that anyone can guarantee that, but that's the concern, obviously, right? For folks
Oh,
here, is that they would
I
vote
think the
to,
concern is that if the city gives a benefit to a landlord developer, and the developer gives a benefit to the public, the city, that both sides should be reasonable and fair. And if one side is being unreasonable or unfair, then there could be rectified through civil court process. That's, I think, all this because I live here.
The question is that we do something. Okay, city have to, I know, lie to customer, the city usually lie. So there is no need in the field, because the field is already kind of, you know, the other thing.
These folks are very happy to litigate. These folks are very happy to litigate. So you're welcome to knock on the door and see if you can sit down for lunch and do the line.
I don't think so.
Exactly.
So, it's either a deal or some kind of alternative arrangement, but there has to be the handshake. At the moment, the developer gets whatever they got, and the city has that's a reasonable.
Basically, I thought I would be have been involved with it, but it was in jeopardy of the
But it is in jeopardy because
So-
of the law disappeared.
So, that's my main concern, is it go away, we have no market to go through our area, now, we can argue about, whether this one, Safeway, maybe they want to charge more money for the Safeway there, I don't know legally how that would wash out, and everything after this one, but maybe that's the issue, but the original agreement was, okay, we got this land, we're gonna do this, whatever it is, with the parking and everything, we make it this way, and you gotta have a market there. And they should have a market. I think it's pretty cut and dry, if that was the original agreement.
Apparently, it's not how it turned out. Yeah.
You know, I know that they had fits and starts, and they could get somebody in there, and they finally got somebody in there, and they left for whatever reason. There's also the economic things that happen, these areas were moving for 4 years, 5 years, it was down for 3 or 4 or 5 years before that, so, it wasn't like people want to add money or rush in and put it in the market too, so there's also economics, but I think if the agreement was to have the market in there, then, they should have the market, and that had to be
Okay,
market.
so what's the way forward? So if that agreement, if that clause is struck, the city has to, has an expectation. You have a replacement to that clause. What that is either the clause that goes back up and the formulation stands, or instead of it, they strike a different agreement to modify the original contract such that explicitly the operator of a grocery store there gets this, and that, and the obligation for the rest of it is with a certain party. At which point, yes, the operation in perpetuity, as they complain about, is not required, but that is the conditions to operation are there. So it's a modification to a contract that we consider impossible if it is agreed to by the superior judge. There has to be something to replace the existing safety net, losing development, and as the guarantor of the continued operation. So maybe they skip that, but the replacement has to be that leases and such conditions, which is comparable perhaps to what they're getting now. And if there is an issue with the surrounding area that interferes with conduct of the business, they're still on for that. But the clause itself is, I'm okay with it, as long as the operability is not in jeopardy. It
Well,
is,
are we dependent upon the city what I think what we're meeting about is to try to do whatever we can to assist the,
Or,
Yeah, I think it's
superior court.
so to do so, I think that first of all, we need to really clarify the situation, which we don't know exactly. And city council shouldn't just do it behind closed doors. They should publicize what is a political situation is now, okay?
Well, not to interrupt you, but it was just explained to us that when you're in litigation, if you spill your guts, as it were, the opposition knows exactly what you're going to do. So I don't think the city's in a position to share its strategy with public.
I don't think they can. If this is their position, or they could just do want to decide something which people pay taxes to the city. Don't it think it's a problem that we should know something so we can raise our opinion, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think there's sort of a human time for the. So,
We are not only educated.
the reason why there's a 3 point privilege is because